Chosen one. Listen closely. This moment is not an accident. Heaven itself has orchestrated your arrival here. Everything that brought you to this very second, the pain, the rejection, the silence was not random. It was a divine test. You were being examined, not for your achievements, not for your strength, but for your love. The kind of love that does not quit when everything falls apart. The kind that endures when God goes quiet. You thought you were just surviving storms, walking through valleys, holding yourself together through tears. But in truth, the heavens were watching. Every time you chose forgiveness over bitterness, patience over rage, surrender over control, heaven recorded it. You didn't even know you were being tested, yet you were passing the exam of eternity. Do you remember the nights you cried, asking, "Lord, where are you?" Those weren't empty cries. They were declarations of loyalty. Every "I still believe" whispered through pain became incense before the throne. You see, the test of love is never taken in comfort. It is taken in silence, when your prayers seem unanswered, and your heart questions everything, when you faced betrayal, when people left without explanation, when the doors you prayed for remained shut. It wasn't punishment, it was purification. God was separating your love from your expectations, stripping away every motive that wasn't pure. Because the kind of love that God values is not proven when things are easy. It's proven when your heart is breaking and you still say, "I will follow you." Chosen one. You were walking through fire, yet your soul refused to turn cold. Heaven saw you fight through disappointment without turning to bitterness. Heaven saw you stand in faith when the logical thing was to give up. You didn't realize it then, but that was your examination. And the unseen realm was watching closely, not to condemn you, but to crown you. Love is the true currency of the kingdom. It's what separates the called from the chosen. Anyone can worship when blessings flow, but few can love when the blessings seem delayed. You loved through silence. You stayed faithful when you had every reason to walk away. That's why God calls you His chosen one. You thought the test was about endurance, but it was about affection. You thought it was about proving strength, but it was about proving purity. He wasn't testing your ability to hold on to things, He was testing your ability to hold on to Him. There are many who started the same race as you, but they turned back when comfort disappeared. You, however, stayed. You stayed when the prayers weren't answered in your timeline. You stayed when your heart was tired. You stayed when it felt like no one understood your faith. That's love, not emotional love, but covenant love, the kind that heaven recognizes. And now, as you stand at the edge of a new season, heaven declares you passed. The test is not something you will pass, it's something you already did. You proved your loyalty, not by shouting, but by standing. And now the same God who tested your love is about to reward it. So, pause right now. Let that truth settle in your spirit. You were never being ignored, you were being observed. The silence was not divine distance, it was divine assessment. God wasn't punishing you, He was preparing you. You have come out of the furnace with a heart that still loves, still hopes, still believes. As Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 22, verse 37, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind." That's what you did. Chosen one. You loved Him through heartbreak. You loved him without understanding, and heaven recorded it. Now, if you are reading this and you feel this truth stirring inside you, if something within says, "This is my message," then don't scroll away. Heaven doesn't waste moments like this. You are hearing this because the test has ended, and the new chapter has begun. It's time for you to stand and declare your identity. Let the heavens know that you understand what just happened. You didn't fail. You didn't lose. You didn't fall apart. You passed the test of love. If this word resonates deep in your spirit, then act in faith. Like this message as a sign that you receive it. Share it so that another weary soul might remember they, too, are being tested for love, not punishment. And comment below with the number 777, symbolizing divine completion and heavenly perfection. You didn't stumble here, you were led. God tested your love, and you passed. You wondered why certain people suddenly vanished from your life, didn't you? Chosen one. You questioned why the same hands that once held yours began to slip away without explanation. You prayed. You tried to fix what was breaking, but it seemed that the more you reached, the further everything drifted. What you did not see was that heaven was at work, carefully orchestrating divine separation, not for punishment, but for revelation. God was removing the noise so you could finally hear his whisper. He was testing whether your heart loved him above all else. It's easy to say, "I love you, Lord," when life is full of laughter and companionship. But when the crowd leaves and the echoes fade, what remains is truth. That truth is what God wanted to see. You were not being abandoned, you were being refined. Every person who left was part of a holy strategy to prove the depth of your devotion. When you cried, "Why are they gone?" heaven whispered, "Because I'm showing you who remains. And who remains is always greater than what departs." The silent seasons of separation are the most misunderstood. They look like rejection, but are really redirection. They feel like loss, but are preparation for divine connection. God was not taking people from you to harm you. He was teaching you the rarest form of love, love without dependency. The kind of love that stands even when no one else stands beside you. In those lonely nights, when your phone stopped ringing and your name stopped appearing in conversations, you thought you were forgotten, but heaven was closer than ever. You were being watched by angels who marveled at your perseverance. They saw you hold on to your integrity when isolation came knocking. They saw you keep loving God when no one clapped for your faithfulness. And that is what separates the chosen from the crowd. Many love God when surrounded by comfort. Few love him when stripped of everything. You became part of that rare few, the ones who stay when everything familiar is gone. Do you remember the tears you shed when friendships faded? When relationships that once carried promise fell silent? Each tear became a seed planted in sacred soil, and though it felt like loss, what truly happened was transformation. You were not losing people, you were losing versions of yourself that could not walk with you into your next season. Separation is never about who left, it's about who you're becoming. The divine pruning was painful. Yes, but it was necessary. You can't carry the weight of old attachments into new glory. The ones who walked away were never meant to understand the magnitude of your calling. Their departure was a requirement for your promotion. You see, love that depends on company isn't love, it's comfort. God wanted to see if your love could stand alone, without applause, without affirmation, without recognition, and you proved that it could. You loved him when your heart was breaking. You trusted him when his hand was hidden. You stayed true when every part of you wanted to run. Now heaven looks upon you with joy. You didn't fail the season of silence, you flourished in it. Your solitude became sacred ground. You learned to find peace in the quiet, to find joy in stillness, to find meaning in loss. That is how the tested ones are forged. Remember this: chosen one, when God removes people, He is not leaving you empty. He is creating room for what aligns with destiny. The pain of separation is temporary, but the reward of obedience is eternal. You passed through that valley with a heart that refused to harden. And now heaven calls you trustworthy. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 17, verse 7. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in Him. That blessing now rests upon you. You trusted even when trust made no sense. You placed your confidence not in people, not in circumstance, but in the one who cannot fail. You have learned to walk alone. But you are not alone. You walk now with divine companionship, with angels guarding your steps and the Spirit guiding your path. The silence that once felt like abandonment has turned into the sound of purpose. You can now hear heaven breathing your name. So do not grieve over who left. Do not question why they could not stay. You are being elevated. And elevation always requires separation. Let peace return to your heart, because everything that departed was never meant to anchor you, only to awaken you. This is what the silent season was about to test: whether your love for God was real, or if it was tied to the company of others. Now that you have loved Him in isolation, He can trust you with influence. Chosen one, heaven saw it all: the loneliness, the confusion, the surrender. None of it was wasted. The separation was sacred. The silence was holy. And the love you proved has been written in heaven's book as testimony. This one loved God, even when left alone. There was a night, chosen one, when the weight became too heavy. You remember it. The air was thick with despair, your chest tight with exhaustion. It wasn't just sadness, it was spiritual fatigue. You weren't sure if you could keep walking. You whispered prayers that barely reached your lips. You said, "Lord, I don't know if I can do this anymore." But even then, heaven was listening. That night was not your end, it was your proving ground. You stood at the edge of surrender. But something divine held you back. You almost gave up. But love wouldn't let you. That is what separates you from the rest. The refusal to quit when everything in you screams to stop. The darkness whispered, "It's over." But your spirit answered, "Not yet." That moment became your testimony. You didn't know it, but every tear that fell was counted. Every breath that trembled was seen. The angels leaned closer, watching how you fought in silence. And when you chose faith over despair, heaven rejoiced. Because the true test of love is not how loud you can shout in worship, it's how still you can stay in suffering. There were nights when you asked, "Why won't you answer me?" But the truth is, God was closer than ever. His silence wasn't absence, it was assessment. The teacher is always silent during the test. And you, dear one, kept writing your answers with every act of faith, every whisper of trust. Every moment you chose to believe in what you could not see. You must understand this: every chosen one faces the night you almost walked away from purpose. the night you almost stopped praying, the night you almost let go of the promise. That almost becomes holy ground, because it's where love wins over fear. The darkness wasn't sent to destroy you, it was sent to reveal you. It showed what kind of faith burns within you, the kind that doesn't flicker when storms rise, the kind that keeps burning even when there's no one around to notice. You were never meant to break under pressure, you were meant to glow in it. God saw the moment you nearly turned back. He saw the heartbreak that tried to drown you, and instead of condemnation, heaven marked that moment as victory. Because love is not proven by ease, it's proven by endurance. You didn't love God because everything made sense. You loved Him because He is worthy. Even when life is not fair, when you thought it was the end, heaven whispered, "It's only the middle." When you said, "I can't do this," God said, "Watch me carry you." And He did. That's why you're still here, not because of your own strength, but because grace refused to let go. Now, as you look back on that night, you realize something sacred that was the night your love grew up. It matured beyond emotion into covenant. You learned that love is not a feeling, it's a decision. You decided to stay when your heart was breaking, to believe when everything around you screamed doubt. That was the moment heaven said, "This one truly loves me." The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 8, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair." That verse is your heartbeat. You were pressed, but not crushed, confused, but not abandoned. You didn't know it, but that night became your coronation in the unseen realm. You passed the breaking point and discovered that love still stood on the other side. Now, the very darkness that tried to destroy you has become your testimony. You can speak light into the lives of others because you know what it's like to stand in the shadows. You can tell someone else, "I've been there, and God brought me through." That's what it means to be chosen. You don't just survive, you transform your pain into prophecy. So remember this, the night you almost gave up was the night heaven wrote your name in fire. You didn't fall, you were forged. You didn't lose, you were lifted. And now, when storms come again, you'll stand with unshakable faith because you've already faced the worst and chosen love. If these words reach you tonight and your heart remembers that same night, the one you thought would break you, then write this simple declaration in the comments, "I still stand." Write it as a mark of victory, because you are still standing against the odds, against the silence, against the storms. You're here, and your survival is proof that divine love never fails. You may not have realized it before, but that night of almost was the night heaven celebrated your endurance. You proved that love cannot be destroyed by darkness. You proved that faith, once refined by fire, becomes unbreakable. You, chosen one, were tested in the night, and the night lost. There came a time when heaven went quiet, not because you were forgotten, but because silence was the only sound fit for that season. You prayed, you sought, you cried, yet nothing seemed to move. The words you once felt so strongly in your spirit became whispers that dissolved into stillness. You wondered, has God left me? But no, chosen one. The truth was far deeper. He was watching your love mature. Silence is not the absence of God, it is the presence of trust being tested. It's the holy classroom where faith learns to breathe without sight. The loudest seasons of divine activity often come disguised as quiet waiting. Heaven doesn't always shout when you are being transformed. Sometimes it simply observes. In those quiet days, your heart wrestled with questions that words could not fix. You replayed every prayer, wondering if you missed something, if you angered the divine somehow, yet heaven remained still. That stillness was not punishment, it was a signal. The teacher had given the test and stepped back, not to abandon you, but to let your love speak louder than your words. Love, real love, is not dependent on constant reassurance. True love doesn't fade when communication slows, it deepens. That's what God was developing within you, a love not based on answered prayers, but anchored in unchanging trust. A love that can worship without response, believe without confirmation, and stand without evidence. In the silence, the noise within you had to quiet too. The doubts, the fears, the self-blame, all had to bow before peace. Because in that deep silence, you were not being ignored, you were being recentered. Heaven was rearranging the foundations of your faith. You began to learn that His stillness carries more weight than His words. There's something sacred that happens when God hides His voice. Your senses become sharper. Your discernment deepens. Your spirit learns to recognize Him not by sound, but by presence. That's why the silence was necessary. It was training your heart to know Him beyond feelings. You might have thought you were in a delay, but you were actually in development. The unseen world was shifting around you. Angels were aligning things in your favor, preparing paths, softening hearts, opening doors that could not yet appear. If God had spoken then, you would have moved too early. So He stayed silent until the time was right. Chosen one. Silence is the sound of heaven building behind the veil. The earth may call it stillness, but heaven calls it strategy. You were not being set aside, you were being set apart. The divine hand was shaping your destiny in secret places. Think of the seed hidden beneath soil. It looks buried, but it's actually becoming. You, too, were planted in that silent season. No one saw your tears, no one heard your prayers, but God did. And in the quiet dark, something began to grow: endurance, maturity, deeper love. Many collapse in silence, mistaking stillness for abandonment. But you endured. You stayed, even when there was no sign, no miracle, no visible move. That's why heaven calls you faithful, because your love was proven when there was nothing left to hold but faith itself. The world measures progress by noise, by activity, applause, visibility, but heaven measures by consistency. The divine knows that silence separates those who love God for His hand from those who love Him for His heart. And you, dear one, have proven where your affection lies. There were days you didn't feel like praying, but still whispered His name. There were mornings you didn't feel strong, but still rose to believe. You didn't stop worshipping, even when no answer came. And that worship, silent, unseen, uncelebrated, became a fragrance before the throne. According to what is revealed in the book of Psalms, chapter 46, verse 10, "Be still, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." This verse is not merely instruction, it's revelation. It reminds you that silence is not the pause between blessings, it is the place where glory gathers strength. God does not cease to be powerful when he is quiet. In fact, his quietness is often proof that the victory is already written. You see, when heaven goes quiet, it's because the next chapter has already been decided. The outcome is secured. The promise is sealed. And all that's left for you to do is wait in faith. You were never meant to fill the silence with fear. You were meant to fill it with trust. Let this truth settle deeply in your heart. You were not abandoned. You were observed. You were not silenced. You were sanctified. Every unanswered prayer was still heard. Every quiet tear still sacred. And when heaven speaks again, it will not be a whisper of correction. It will be a declaration of completion. Chosen one. You survived the stillness. You walked through the quiet and did not lose your song. And now, the very silence that once frightened you will become your power. Because you have learned what few ever learn, to love God, not for what he says, but for who he is. Fire does not ask permission before it tests gold, and love does not prove itself in comfort. Chosen one, you have walked through the fire. Every flame that touched you was refining, not destroying. Every heartbreak that broke you was a furnace designed to reveal something divine within you. The world saw ashes. Heaven saw an altar. You wondered why everything you built seemed to collapse. You questioned why relationships failed, dreams crumbled, and prayers seemed delayed. But what looked like loss was actually purification. The love within you had to be tested, because love that has not faced fire is only emotion. Love that has survived the flame becomes devotion. You were being refined, not rejected. The pressure you faced wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every disappointment burned away what wasn't meant to stay. Every tear washed away what couldn't enter your next chapter. You became pure, radiant, unshakable. That's what fire does. It transforms what it touches. Heaven was never trying to destroy you. God allowed the flames only because he knew what they would produce. You see, fire is a strange teacher. It consumes the unnecessary but strengthens what is true. The same heat that melts wax hardens clay. The difference lies in the material. And you, beloved, were not wax. You were gold all along. Think of it when gold is placed in the fire. It doesn't scream. It doesn't fight. It simply endures, knowing that when the fire is over, it will shine with greater clarity. You did the same. You endured the furnace of heartbreak, of loss, of silence. You refused to give up your love. You stayed faithful, even when the heat rose higher. And now heaven looks at you and says, "This one is pure," as was spoken in the sacred texts of old. In the book of Zechariah, chapter 13, verse 9, "I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. They will call on my name, and I will answer them. I will say, 'They are my people.' And they will say, 'The Lord is our God.'" That is your story. You were refined, not ruined, tested, not tossed aside. And now your love carries the fragrance of fire, proof that it is genuine. Sometimes the refining comes through people. The betrayal that cut you was the fire. The loss that hollowed you was the heat. The unanswered prayers were the flame. But in every trial, something inside you said, "Still, I will love you, God." That statement alone became a roar in the spiritual realm. Hell trembled at it, because the one thing darkness cannot mimic is pure love for God. Now you carry a glow that cannot be explained. It's not pride, it's proof. Proof that you survived what should have consumed you. You walk differently because you've been through the fire. You speak differently because you've seen the flames and lived to tell the story. And now, beloved, this message comes to remind you that your endurance was not wasted. God uses vessels that have known heat because they understand compassion. Only those who've been burned know how to handle others gently. You are now that vessel, refined, humble, glowing with purpose. So when you see someone walking through their own fire, you won't judge them. You'll remember. You'll extend grace. Because you know what it feels like to be purified by pain. And that's how heaven multiplies love through those who have been tested and still choose compassion. Fire teaches empathy. It teaches patience. It teaches understanding. You've learned to see pain differently now, not as punishment, but as process. You can now say, even the fire served me, because it did. It revealed your divine composition. Chosen one. When gold shines, people are drawn to its light. And if your spirit has been blessed by messages like this, if these words have helped you see purpose in your pain, then consider becoming part of keeping this light burning. Just as fire needs fuel, divine messages need hands to carry them further. A simple act of generosity, a share, a subscription, a small donation, these are like drops of oil that keep the flame alive. You are not just a receiver of light, you are a keeper of it. When you give, when you share, when you help sustain this flow, you become part of the message itself. So if this message has stirred your heart, if you have found healing in these words, take a quiet moment. Like this message. Share it so another weary soul might find their way through the fire. Subscribe to stay connected to what heaven continues to speak here. And if you feel led, donate not as a transaction, but as an offering. You are helping this light reach further, touching lives that need the same hope you once needed. Just as gold passes through fire to reveal its shine, this mission continues through hearts like yours that refuse to let the flame go out. You are part of something sacred, something eternal. Remember, every ember that once hurt you has now become light in your story. You are not a survivor of fire, you are a reflection of its power. Heaven's fire did not destroy you, it revealed who you truly are, chosen, purified, radiant with divine love. There came a moment when your obedience was tested in ways the world could not see. Doors opened before you that seemed beautiful, glittering with promise. They looked like blessings, but your spirit hesitated. Something deep inside whispered, "This isn't from him." And though every part of you longed to step through, you chose restraint. You chose obedience over opportunity. That was the moment heaven stood still and said, "They truly love me." Chosen one. It takes courage to say no when everything in you wants to say yes. The enemy never tempts you with what is ugly, he tempts you with what seems almost right. And many fall, not because they wanted evil, but because they could not wait for good. You, however, waited. You refused to build what God did not bless. You said no to the counterfeit while trusting that heaven would send the real. The world will never understand that kind of obedience. To them, it looks foolish to turn down what others chase. But heaven sees differently. Every door you declined out of reverence became an offering. Every opportunity you released became worship. The angels watched you walk away from things that glittered but weren't gold, and they marked your loyalty. There were moments when you questioned your own wisdom. You wondered, did I make a mistake by waiting? Yet, even in your uncertainty, you obeyed. You stayed in alignment with the quiet voice of the Spirit. And that voice was leading you not into deprivation, but protection. You were not being denied, you were being preserved. The truth is this: not every open door is divine. Some are distractions designed to detour your destiny. That's why discernment is such a rare and precious gift. You didn't just listen with your ears, you listened with your heart. You chose the narrow road, the unseen path, and heaven took note. Sometimes obedience feels like loss, but it's really positioning. When you said no, you created space for what heaven wanted to give you. The delay you experience now is not punishment, it's preparation. The blessings that last require obedience that costs, and you have already paid that price. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it tarry. Wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not delay." You waited, and because you waited, heaven is now ready to release what no counterfeit could ever replace. The things you thought you lost were never yours to begin with. They were lessons dressed as opportunities. You were being trained to trust timing more than temptation. Remember, chosen one, obedience doesn't always look glorious. It often looks like silence, like staying still when everyone else is running. But the fruit of that obedience is peace, peace that cannot be shaken by results, peace that confirms heaven is with you. You see, obedience builds invisible bridges. You can't always see where they lead, but when the moment comes, you'll realize every step of restraint was guiding you toward divine fulfillment. You didn't lose time, you invested it. You didn't lose chances, you gained wisdom. Heaven delights in hearts that listen. When God finds one who will obey without understanding, He can trust them with power. That's why your season of silence was necessary. It built your spiritual muscles for the weight of what's coming next. You will soon see why every no was sacred. God is not cruel, He is precise. He removes what seems perfect so He can place what is eternal. The path you're walking may feel narrow now, but it leads to wide spaces of purpose. Chosen one, you have proven that love for God is not about convenience, it's about conviction. You refuse to compromise your faith for comfort. You turned down what looked good because you desired what was holy. That is the kind of obedience heaven crowns. And now, as this truth reaches you, there's a stirring inside your heart. You can sense that the waiting has not been wasted. You are standing on the edge of divine manifestation. The promises you protected with obedience are about to unfold before your eyes. If this message resonates in your spirit, seal it as an act of faith. Write the number 444 inches, the comments. That number symbolizes divine alignment, heaven's structure surrounding your steps. It is a sign that what once seemed delayed is actually being delivered in perfect order. Type it as a declaration that you will keep obeying. Keep trusting. Keep waiting for the appointed time, because obedience, not opportunity, will always open the right doors. And you, beloved, have already proven your love by standing firm in the waiting. There came a season when love cost you everything, the kind of cost that isn't measured in money or possessions, but in pieces of yourself. You gave from places no one could see your time, your trust, your heart. You poured yourself into people and dreams, believing it was all part of God's plan. Yet somewhere along the way, it felt like everything began slipping through your fingers. The very ones you helped turned away. The prayers you prayed seemed unanswered. The dreams you nurtured appeared to wither. And you asked in quiet pain, "Why does loving so deeply hurt so much?" But heaven whispered back, "Because love is meant to cost something. You see, chosen one, real love is never cheap. It is not a transaction, it is transformation. Love that costs nothing, changes nothing. Every tear you've cried has become proof that your heart is still alive, still capable of compassion in a world that has grown cold. That is rare, and heaven treasures it. When God tested your love, He didn't ask for perfection, He asked for surrender, the kind that says, "Even if I lose everything, I will still love you." That is the kind of love that separates disciples from admirers. Anyone can love when it's easy, but only the chosen can love when it hurts. You didn't just love God through words, you loved Him through losses. You loved Him through uncertainty. You loved Him even when you couldn't feel His presence. That's not weakness, that's strength the world doesn't understand. Every time something was taken from you, heaven was watching how you would respond. Would you become bitter? Or would you bless? Would you let pain make you cynical? Or would you let it make you pure? You chose purity. You kept your heart soft in a hard world. And that alone is evidence of divine strength. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms. Chapter 34, verse 18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. God was not distant in your breaking, He was closest then. The moments you thought were abandonment were actually divine embrace in disguise. Every sob that escaped your lips was heard by heaven. Every lonely night was recorded, not as tragedy, but as testimony. You lost things you loved, yes, but in that loss you gained something more eternal. You discovered that love for God isn't proven by what He gives, but by what you can lose and still stay faithful. The true test of love is not what you receive, it's what you're willing to let go of. You were stripped of titles, positions, relationships, maybe even your own sense of identity. But God was peeling away everything false, everything temporary, so that your love could stand naked and real before Him. And in that sacred nakedness, you found something unshakable: peace. Love that costs you something becomes your greatest offering. Heaven calls it worship, not the kind that comes from music or words, but from endurance. Every still "I love you," whispered through tears, became a fragrance that filled heaven's throne room. Chosen one, your pain did not disqualify you, it qualified you. The world says, protect your heart. But God says, present your heart. That's why your journey has been so different. You weren't meant to live guarded, you were meant to live surrendered. You may have thought the cost was too high, but look at what it produced. You are no longer fragile, you are faithful. No longer desperate, you are discerning. You no longer chase love for validation, you give love as revelation. Because you've learned that love is not about what you get back, it's about what you reflect from the one who loved you first. The sacrifices you made have not been ignored. Heaven does not overlook pain that is born from obedience. God saw when you walked away from comfort to follow conviction. He saw when you stayed kind to those who wounded you. He saw when you blessed what tried to break you. These were not wasted moments, they were acts of worship. Every loss you endured was building a legacy of love inside you. You have become a mirror of divine mercy, a carrier of compassion. That is what happens when love costs everything. It transforms you into the image of the one who gave everything first. Do not regret what you gave. Nothing you have lost in love is truly gone. It has only changed form. The love you poured out has gone ahead of you, waiting to meet you again in multiplied form. The pain of giving is temporary, but the fruit of giving lasts forever. So lift your head, chosen one. You may have scars, but they are sacred scars, proof that love lived here, proof that you did not close your heart, even when the world tried to harden it, proof that your obedience and your affection walked hand in hand through the fire. Heaven looks at you and smiles, because you have loved well, even when it cost you everything. And that, in the language of eternity, is victory. There is a kind of breaking that doesn't shatter you, it shapes you. It's the kind that strips away everything that isn't real, leaving only what is eternal. You know that breaking, chosen one. You've lived it. The moments when you felt like life was splintering in your hands, when the plans you made scattered like dust in the wind. You didn't realize it then, but God was building something new inside the rubble. Breaking is never cruelty when it comes from divine hands. It's the sculptor's chisel meeting the marble. It's not destruction, it's design. You were not being crushed, you were being carved. Every crack became a doorway for light to enter. Every fracture allowed grace to flow through. Heaven was not punishing you, heaven was refining you through pressure. God allowed the heartbreak not to humiliate you, but to expose what was hidden. The breaking revealed your strength, your purity, your loyalty. It revealed whether you loved the gift more than the giver. And though the pain was sharp, your spirit whispered, "Even now, I still choose you, Lord." That single sentence echoed through heaven like thunder. You see, chosen one. Brokenness is not the opposite of blessing, it's the birthplace of it. The vessels that shine the brightest are those that have been cracked and filled again with divine light. You became one of those vessels. Through your tears, you began to glow with something that cannot be faked: authenticity. When you were breaking, you thought everything was ending. But in truth, that was the beginning. God was removing the false layers, tearing down the scaffolds you had built to protect yourself. You had to lose what you thought made you strong so that He could give you real strength, the kind that doesn't come from perfection, but from surrender. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 51, verse 17, "The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. O God, you will not despise." He never despised your breaking. He welcomed it, because only in the breaking could the real you emerge, the one that carries heaven's fragrance. God doesn't build altars from pride. He builds them from humility. And your pain became His altar. During your breaking, everything you once depended on failed you. People couldn't understand. The plans that once felt certain dissolved. Even your own strength betrayed you. But in that emptiness, something holy began to happen. You stopped performing faith and started living it. You stopped trying to hold everything together and simply said, "Lord, hold me." That's where transformation began. Because the moment you stopped pretending to be strong, heaven began to infuse you with its strength. You were no longer building alone. God was rebuilding you from within, piece by piece. tear by tear. He restored you into something new, something unshakable. Breaking revealed your foundation. You discovered that faith is not built on things going right. It's built on love that doesn't quit when things go wrong. That's why your story has such weight. You carry depth now. You speak with authority born from pain. You no longer echo what others say about faith, you embody it. Do you see it now? The breaking didn't destroy you, it baptized you into maturity. You are not the same person who entered that storm. You emerged with eyes that see differently, with a heart that beats slower but deeper. You have compassion now where there used to be judgment. You have peace now where there used to be control. The world around you may not notice, but heaven does. Your brokenness became your beauty mark in the spiritual realm. God uses the broken to display His glory, because only they can reflect it without pride. Cracked vessels let His light through. That's why He trusted you with pain, because He knew you wouldn't waste it. He knew you'd use it to help others heal. Every wound you carry now glows with wisdom. Every scar has become a doorway for someone else's hope. You are a walking testimony that broken doesn't mean finished, it means chosen for deeper transformation. When you look back, you'll see that the season of breaking was the season heaven was closest. Every shattered piece of your heart became a mirror that reflected His image more clearly. You lost some things you thought you couldn't live without, but you gained something that cannot be taken: divine intimacy. Chosen one. Don't curse your breaking. Bless it, for through it, you found the one who never breaks. You discovered a love that does not falter when everything else falls apart. And because of that, you now carry the fragrance of endurance, the strength of surrender, and the beauty of those who have walked through the fire and come out shining. Your breaking didn't bury you, it built you. It didn't silence you, it sanctified you. And now the world will see, through your scars, the evidence of a God who transforms pain into purpose and ashes into glory. There are moments, chosen one, when heaven itself whispers your name, not loudly, not with thunder, but in the stillness of your spirit. And in those sacred moments, angels lean close and say, they still love him. That is what heaven has been saying about you, through every tear, through every unanswered prayer, through every lonely night. Your love never left. Even when your words failed, your endurance spoke. Even when you didn't feel faith, your persistence became faith in motion. The angels witnessed you lifting your head in worship when your heart was weary, and they recorded it as a song. You may not have heard it, but the heavens did. You see, love is not proven in what you say, it is revealed in what you continue to do when everything around you goes silent. When you still pray, when you still believe, when you still bless others despite your own pain. That's love. That's faith wrapped in motion. The enemy thought your silence meant surrender. He thought your tears meant defeat. But he didn't know that tears are the language of loyalty. Every drop that fell from your eyes spoke a word heaven could understand: still faithful. You are the kind of person who doesn't need applause to stay devoted. You serve quietly, forgive quickly, and love deeply, even when it costs you peace. That is what makes you different. That is why you are marked. The light within you terrifies darkness because it refuses to die. When heaven looks at you, it doesn't see your mistakes, it sees your endurance. You are a testimony written in invisible ink, revealed only under the fire of trials. What you call pain, heaven calls proof. What you call delay, Heaven calls development. It was never about perfection. It was always about persistence. Every time you fell, but stood again, the heavens rejoiced. Every time you prayed one more time, when your heart said, enough, you passed another unseen test. The universe itself watches in awe of souls like yours, the ones who choose love even when they have reasons to hate. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9, "Let us not grow weary in doing good. At the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." That's the promise hovering over your life right now. The harvest is already forming. The angels who once whispered about your endurance are now preparing to shout about your reward. Chosen one, don't underestimate how heaven views your quiet obedience. You may think it's small, those little choices to stay kind, to remain hopeful, but in the realm of eternity, those are mighty acts of faith. Every time you refused to retaliate, you became a sword of light in the unseen war. Sometimes the most powerful worship happens without music. It's in the way you forgive, the way you hope, the way you love without recognition. That's why the angel said, they still love him, because even in your confusion, your heart didn't harden. It stayed soft, beating with divine rhythm. You've reached a level of faith where you don't need signs to believe anymore. You've learned to recognize God by his silence as much as by his voice. That maturity is rare. It's the kind of depth heaven crowns. And because you have proven faithful in quiet places, God is about to speak through your life in ways that will echo loudly. There's a sacred shift taking place. The same areas where you sowed in tears will soon become fields of laughter. The love that once felt unnoticed will soon be honored. Heaven never forgets loyalty. And you, dear one, have been loyal even when love hurt. If this message touches the part of your heart that still remembers the pain, yet still chooses love, then write these words in the comments: I choose light. Say it not just as a phrase, but as a declaration. Because every time you choose light, you are telling heaven that you still believe, still trust, still love despite everything. You are saying that darkness cannot define you. And when you type those words, understand this: it's not about social media engagement or algorithms. It's a prophetic act. It's your way of echoing what the angels have already declared, that your heart belongs to light. You are aligning with heaven's testimony about you. So let your fingers declare what your spirit already knows: you are still standing, still shining, still choosing love in a world that has forgotten how. And because of that, your story will carry the fragrance of heaven wherever you go. The angels said it first, but let the world hear it too. You still love him, you still believe, and your faith quiet, pure, and enduring has shaken realms that words could never reach. Heaven's report is complete. Chosen one, the test has ended, and the verdict has been declared: you passed. Every silent night, every painful surrender, every whispered prayer that felt unanswered was recorded in the courts of heaven. The Father has reviewed your faithfulness and written beside your name: approved, tested, true. You did not realize that your endurance became a symphony to heaven. While the world saw struggle, heaven heard music. Your perseverance formed melodies in realms you cannot yet see. Angels carried your name through corridors of light and said, "This one remained faithful through fire." That sentence alone shook the foundations of darkness. When heaven tests love, It does not ask for words, it asks for witness. And you have become that witness. You are living proof that love can outlast pain, that obedience can outshine opportunity, that faith can breathe even when buried under sorrow. The prophet Isaiah spoke of this kind of restoration. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 3, to bestow on them a crown of beauty, the oil of joy, a garment of praise. That crown now rests upon you. Heaven has exchanged your ashes for beauty. The oil of joy is dripping from your name. You no longer carry the scent of struggle, you carry the aroma of victory. When heaven declares you past, it doesn't mean you will never face battles again. It means you now fight with new authority. You walk differently because you've been proven trustworthy. God can now use your voice to reach others who are still in the test you survived. You are a living lighthouse, glowing not because you've avoided storms, but because you've survived them. Your scars have turned into lanterns, guiding others toward hope. Every place where you once bled has become a place that now shines. That's what divine testing produces: luminescent hearts. Chosen one. If these words stir something deep in you, it's because they are heaven's reflection of your journey. The test was never meant to break you, it was meant to reveal you. You thought you were losing everything, but in truth, heaven was stripping away the false to unveil the divine. And now, heaven asks of you not just to celebrate, but to share. Because light that hides itself eventually dims. You have been given a flame, don't bury it. When you share this message, when you let it flow through you to another broken heart, you are not promoting words, you are spreading warmth. You become a divine spark in someone else's night. So, if you feel that pull in your spirit, that quiet voice saying, "This message is me," then help keep it alive. Like this message, it is more than a button, it's a touch of agreement. Share it, not to impress, but to bless. Each share is like a candle being passed from one hand to another, lighting the path for those who can no longer see their own. Subscribe, not out of habit, but as an act of commitment to stay close to the voice that reminds you who you are when the world forgets. And if your heart feels stirred to give, let it be your offering of gratitude. Even the smallest seed helps keep this river of words flowing to those who are thirsty for hope. When you donate, you are not supporting a platform, you are watering a tree that gives shelter to others. You are joining in the divine exchange, your generosity becoming part of heaven's healing chain. Think of it as placing oil into the lamp of someone else's midnight. Because every message like this is a lamp, but it burns through hearts willing to pour in oil. It's not about money, it's about mission. It's about keeping this space sacred, where souls can breathe, where faith can be rekindled, where the weary can remember that God still speaks. You have been touched by these words for a reason. Maybe you are not meant to just receive the light, but to help carry it further. Heaven smiled the day you chose obedience over convenience. And heaven smiles again each time you help this light reach another lost heart. This is not performance, it's participation in something holy. You passed the test. Chosen one. Now you live as proof. You carry heaven's signature in your endurance, heaven's mark in your mercy. Walk with confidence, knowing the teacher who once stayed silent is now speaking blessings over your life. The exam has ended, the reward has begun. And as this message finds you, feel the quiet joy of heaven filling your room. You made it through the silence. through the fire, through the breaking. You are not who you were, you are who God always knew you could become. The test has ended. The results are divine. Heaven calls your name and smiles. There is a certain glow that only the tested carry. It cannot be bought, and it cannot be imitated. It is the radiance of those who have walked through fire and come out shining. You, chosen one, now wear that glow. Heaven calls it the crown of the tested. It is not made of gold or jewels, but of light woven from endurance, humility, and love that refused to die. You may not feel like royalty yet, but heaven sees the crown resting on your spirit. It's invisible to human eyes, yet the realms of darkness recognize it. Every trial you endured added another beam of light to it. Every time you chose forgiveness over revenge, the crown grew brighter. Every time you stood still when fear said, "Run," its brilliance deepened. You didn't earn this crown by perfection, but by persistence. You were not flawless, you were faithful. That's what heaven celebrates. God never looked for the ones who never fall. He looks for the ones who rise again with love still intact. That is you. You are the proof that grace wins. In the beginning, the testing felt cruel. You thought God was distant, that your prayers had gone unheard. But now, as you look back, you see that the silence was the womb of strength. You were being formed in hidden places. What the world mistook for suffering was actually crowning. You were being anointed in obscurity. Crowns are not given in comfort, they are formed in conflict. No warrior is crowned without battle. No saint without suffering. You carried your cross without applause, and now you carry a crown without pride. That is the mark of a true chosen one. According to what is written in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 4, verse 8, "Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing." That crown is not just a symbol of reward, it's a reflection of your identity. You have become the kind of person who longs for God's presence more than earthly recognition. And because of that, heaven has adorned you with something eternal. The crown of the tested is not heavy, it's holy. It rests lightly, but it carries weight in the spiritual world. Wherever you go, darkness recognizes the authority on your life. You don't even need to speak. Your presence announces that you have overcome. You carry peace like a mantle, and demons tremble at that calm. This crown also carries responsibility. It's not given for decoration, but for delegation. Heaven trusts you now with influence, because you proved you would not misuse it. The authority you carry was born through surrender, not ambition. That's why it will last. Every person who sees you may not understand the change. They may not see the crown, but they will feel it. They will sense something different, an atmosphere of grace, a steadiness, a quiet strength. That is what happens when heaven crowns you. You begin to radiate divine stability. You no longer rush as before. You've learned the rhythm of heaven, slow, steady, sure. You no longer panic when doors close. You understand that some closures are coronations in disguise. You no longer crave recognition because you've tasted revelation. You now walk as one who knows that unseen victories are greater than visible applause. This crown does not elevate you above others. It enables you to lift them. You wear it not to be admired, but to serve. The authority that comes from testing is gentle, patient, and compassionate. You will now find that your words carry healing, your prayers carry weight, and your presence carries peace. That's the evidence of the crown. Many chase crowns made by men, crowns that glitter in the sun but fade with time. But yours, chosen one, shines from within. It cannot be stolen, cannot tarnish, cannot break. It was forged in the furnace of affliction and sealed by the breath of God. You may not see it when you look in the mirror, but heaven sees it when you walk through a room. The angels recognize the fragrance of tested love. The light you carry now speaks louder than your voice ever could. So walk humbly, crowned yet grounded. Let your steps echo with grace, not pride. Remember where the crown came from. It was born from brokenness, raised through resilience, and crowned by love. You didn't climb for it, you grew into it. The crown of the tested isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of your purpose. You were refined for more than survival, you were crowned for impact. And now, every place you tread becomes sacred, because you walk as one approved by heaven, trusted by God, and recognized by eternity. The weight you once carried has turned into the glory you now wear. What once crushed you has now crowned you. That is the mystery of divine testing. The fire that tried to consume you became the light that now surrounds you. You, chosen one, are crowned, not because you won easily, but because you loved relentlessly. And that crown will shine long after the world forgets your name. For heaven will never forget your faith. There is movement in the unseen. Chosen one, things you prayed for in tears are now stirring quietly beneath the surface. The ground that once looked barren is trembling with life again. Heaven is in motion. Restoration has begun. You may not see the full picture yet, but the signs are already there, the sudden peace in your spirit. The doors that once stayed locked now trembling at the hinges. The weight on your heart beginning to lift. God is not only restoring what was lost, He is multiplying it. When love has been tested and proven true, heaven always responds with restoration. It is a divine law, nothing surrendered in faith stays dead. What you placed on the altar in obedience is now returning, resurrected and refined. The seeds you sowed in tears are ready for harvest. You thought you were waiting for restoration, but in truth, restoration was waiting for you to mature, to trust, to become the kind of vessel that can carry abundance without breaking under its weight. You are that vessel now. Restoration does not always come in the same form as what was lost. Sometimes God doesn't return the old. He reveals something better, something that could not exist until you changed. That's why this season feels different, not like the beginning of something new, but the redemption of everything that was delayed. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verse 3. Then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes and have compassion on you and gather you again from all the nations where He scattered you. This is your gathering season. Everything that scattered your peace, your joy, your purpose is being called back home. The pieces that felt disconnected are being arranged into a divine mosaic. God is not giving you fragments, He is giving you fullness. The relationships that crumbled are being healed, not necessarily through reconciliation, but through revelation. You will see why certain people left, why certain paths closed. You will thank God not only for what He gave, but for what He withheld. Restoration is not about reliving the past, it's about redeeming its purpose. Chosen one, You've grown too much to return to what was. You are stepping into the after pain, after silence, after fire. You are walking into abundance not as who you were, but as who you have become, wiser, humbler, more compassionate. The things you lost were not punishment, they were pruning. And what grows after pruning is always more fruitful than before. You are about to witness that truth. Sometimes God allows everything to fall apart so that when He rebuilds it, the world will know it was Him. You will soon look at your life and recognize His fingerprints on every restored detail. The beauty of divine restoration is that it carries evidence. It bears the fragrance of grace, the glow of redemption, and the peace of understanding. You will no longer mourn what was. You will bless it. Because without those losses, you would have never discovered your real strength. Without those breaks, you would have never found your real connection to heaven. There's a quiet shift happening in your atmosphere. What was once delayed is now accelerated. Where you once faced resistance, there is now divine favor. The wind that once blew against you is now at your back. You can feel it. Something is changing. Restoration is not loud, it's steady. Like dawn rising after a long night. It starts subtly. Then suddenly the whole horizon glows. You are standing in that moment right now, the soft edge of sunrise. The shadows are retreating. The new day has begun. And as heaven moves, it asks for your agreement. You align with restoration not through striving, but through declaration. You don't need to chase what's returning, you need to receive it. If these words resonate with the ache and the hope inside your heart, seal this truth with faith. Write the number 555 inches, the comments. That number symbolizes divine grace and transition the moment heaven shifts you from waiting to walking, from hoping to holding. When you write it, let it be your signal to heaven, I am ready to receive what has been restored. You're not just typing digits, you are aligning your faith with the rhythm of divine movement. You have walked through loss, through fire, through breaking, and now you stand at the doorway of restoration. This is not a random turn of fate, this is divine timing. The God who watched you weep is the same God who is now preparing your table in full view of everything that tried to destroy you. Restoration doesn't whisper, you survived. It declares, you've been renewed. And soon, those who once doubted your endurance will see what heaven always saw. Someone who refused to let go. Someone who passed the test of love and is now stepping into fullness. Chosen one, the time of subtraction is over. Multiplication has begun. You are not returning to what was, you are advancing to what always should have been. There is a sacred pattern to divine promotion. Chosen one. It never arrives wrapped in glory, it comes disguised as pressure. Heaven always tests before it trusts. The moments that broke you were not the end of your story. They were the weight that stretched your capacity for greater things. What you thought was destruction was actually expansion. Every spiritual promotion is preceded by a season of contradiction. You prayed for purpose, and suddenly everything around you seemed to fall apart. You asked for strength, and weakness overwhelmed you. You asked for clarity, and confusion deepened. But this is heaven's way. God hides new strength inside what looks like struggle. The reason the pressure intensified before your breakthrough was because heaven was enlarging you. Oil only flows when olives are crushed. Wine only pours when grapes are pressed. You, too, were being pressed so that divine oil could flow from your life. The greater the calling, the deeper the crushing. But now, the pressing has ended, and the outpouring has begun. You didn't realize it then, but while you were breaking, heaven was writing your promotion decree. Every no you received was making room for a yes that would change everything. Every delay was a divine rearrangement, aligning you with something higher than you prayed for. The world measures success by visibility. Heaven measures it by obedience. You obeyed quietly. You served faithfully when no one was watching. You chose character over convenience, purpose over popularity. That's why the next chapter of your life will carry a weight you haven't seen before, the weight of authority born from endurance. The Apostle Paul wrote about this mystery in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 18. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. This is that glory season. What once felt like humiliation will now become elevation. The same areas where you were mocked will become the platforms where you are honored. Heaven promotes those who can be trusted with pain, because pain purifies motives. You have proven that your desire is not fame, it's faithfulness. You may have thought you were overlooked, but heaven was simply hiding you until the right time. There are treasures that can only be forged in secrecy. Had God promoted you too soon, the spotlight might have burned what maturity now protects. You had to grow roots before fruit. Chosen one. The shift is already in motion. The divine mantle you carry has matured in silence. And now heaven is positioning you for visibility, not for vanity, but for impact. The same light that once exposed your weakness will now reveal your strength. Promotion in the kingdom isn't a title, it's trust. It's when God decides that your heart has been proven enough to carry His heart into places that others cannot reach. You will soon notice doors opening not because you chased them, but because obedience unlocked them. You won't have to force them. They will recognize the authority on your life and swing open by divine command. You have moved from being tested to being trusted. Heaven has seen your consistency when no one applauded, your purity when no one praised, your faithfulness when no one followed. That kind of steadfastness cannot remain hidden. Light like yours must rise. Promotion often feels like weight at first. New levels bring new responsibilities. But don't fear this shift. You were born for it. The grace that carried you through testing will carry you through triumph. You will not be crushed under this elevation. You will be sustained by the same strength that shaped you. Remember, chosen one. Divine promotion is not about replacing others. It's about releasing what's within you. You are not being lifted to compete. You are being elevated to complete. You have been prepared to fill a void that only your anointing can fill. This new chapter will require the same humility that got you here. Don't rush to prove yourself. Let fruit speak where words cannot. You are stepping into a realm where your obedience will echo louder than your explanation. You no longer need to justify the process. Your life itself is proof of God's timing. There will be people who once dismissed you, now drawn to your wisdom. There will be moments when your words carry power beyond understanding. That's not pride, it's purpose. You have been refined to carry revelation, and revelation always attracts responsibility. So walk gently, crowned but cautious. Knowing this promotion is not about recognition but representation. You carry heaven's message now. You are not the same as before. You've been redefined by endurance, reshaped by love, and rebuilt by divine pressure. The promotion you are walking into isn't just for you, it's for those who will follow your example. You will become a living blueprint for those still in their testing season. Your story will whisper to them, "Hold on, glory is on the other side." Every crushing, every delay, every heartbreak, it all led here. You are heaven's evidence that suffering births glory, that endurance births influence, and that humility births true power. So lift your head, not in pride, but in purpose. You have been promoted by heaven's hand. What once pressed you down has now become the platform you'll stand on. You're no longer just surviving, you're stepping into the role heaven always prepared for you. There is a quiet irony in how God writes stories. Chosen one. The same eyes that once watched you stumble will soon witness your rise. The same voices that whispered doubt will be forced to speak acknowledgement. What once mocked you will now marvel, for every private humiliation. Heaven has prepared a public restoration, not for revenge, but for revelation, so that those who doubted God's hand upon you will see His glory with their own eyes. You have walked through the valley of misunderstanding. People spoke of you without knowing your prayers. They judged your silence as weakness, your patience as naivety, your obedience as confusion. But you never retaliated. You kept walking, trusting that heaven was keeping the records. You didn't defend yourself, because you knew truth doesn't need protection, it needs time. Time has arrived. The divine clock has struck a new hour. And now everything hidden will be unveiled. God is not bringing you forward to prove your worth. He is bringing you forward to display His faithfulness. Those who laughed at your waiting will soon see why you waited. Every time you were ignored, heaven was taking notes. Every betrayal was recorded, not for vengeance, but for vindication. Because divine justice is not about destroying enemies, it's about demonstrating favor. You will not rise out of bitterness, you will rise out of blessing. In the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14, the voice of God thundered and said, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." You obeyed that command. You stayed still while others rushed. You remained calm while storms raged. You didn't try to clear your name. You let heaven do it. And now heaven is responding. The same God who watched your restraint will now reward it. Do not imagine your elevation as thunder and noise. It will come like dawn, gentle, unstoppable, undeniable. Slowly, the light will shift, and people will begin to see what they once couldn't. You will notice hearts softening, perspectives changing, opportunities opening. The very places where you were once dismissed will now request your presence. This isn't pride, it's prophecy. The word spoken over your life is maturing. God is aligning circumstances so perfectly that even your critics will say, "Surely the Lord has done this." That's the mark of true vindication, when glory points not to you, but to Him. You see, chosen one, God never forgets humility. When you chose silence instead of self-defense, you stepped aside and let heaven speak. Now, the same silence that once felt like abandonment will roar like thunder on your behalf. Your obedience was your argument, and heaven has ruled in your favor. Do not harden your heart toward those who hurt you. Their ignorance was part of your training. Their betrayal became the hammer that shaped your compassion. You cannot hate what God used to refine you. Forgiveness is the crown of those who ascend rightly. The tables will turn, but they will turn gracefully. You will not stand over your enemies. you will stand before them clothed in peace. Because divine reversal isn't about humiliation, it's about illumination. They will see what you saw all along, that you were never weak, never lost, never forsaken. You were chosen, hidden, and prepared. There will come a moment when someone who once spoke against you will need your voice, your advice, your kindness, and in that moment, you will extend mercy. That's when heaven will smile, because the test of love will be complete. You will bless where others cursed, and grace will echo louder than bitterness ever could. Those who mocked your surrender will witness your glory, and they will understand it was never luck, it was lineage. You belong to a kingdom that rewards patience and honors endurance. Every quiet decision to stay faithful has built this moment. You will not need to announce your arrival. Your peace will announce it for you. Chosen one. Divine vindication is not revenge dressed in holiness. It's restoration written in grace. It's when God sets things right in such a way that even those who doubted must bow to truth. You will stand not as a victim of betrayal, but as a vessel of redemption. Heaven is meticulous in justice. Not one tear you cried went unnoticed. Not one wound went unhealed. Every injustice was turned into intercession. And now those prayers, born from pain, are returning as power. You will find yourself walking through places that once rejected you, not with arrogance, but with awe, because you will realize God was not delaying you, He was developing you. And now the stage is set for His glory to unfold. When those who wronged you see your peace, your glow, your stability, they will remember what they said, and their hearts will tremble, not from fear of you, but from awe of the God who kept you. That is divine vindication. So stand tall, chosen one. Don't look back with anger. Look ahead with gratitude. You're not being elevated to embarrass anyone. You're being elevated to exemplify grace. Your rise is not revenge, it's revelation. Heaven is about to make your life a living sermon that faith still works. Love still wins. And those who wait on the Lord will never be put to shame. Heaven is not silent anymore. Chosen one. The divine courtroom that once watched you endure quietly is now echoing your name in joy. You have stepped into a season where heaven celebrates you publicly for what you carried privately. The tests are over, the refining complete. And now the rewards are being released both in heaven and on earth. This is the moment of recognition, the moment when both realms, seen and unseen, acknowledge the faith that refused to die. You are walking beneath an open heaven, and favor is pouring out like rain after drought. The same obedience that cost you so much is now the magnet drawing blessings toward you. Every seed of faith you buried in pain is now pushing through the soil. The harvest has begun not as a whisper, but as a song. Heaven sings over you. Well done, faithful one. The very earth beneath your feet has been commanded to yield increase. And wherever you step, fruitfulness will follow. The book of Proverbs, chapter 11, verse 25, reveals this divine truth. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. You refreshed others, even while you were thirsty yourself. You encouraged when no one encouraged you, gave when you barely had enough, prayed for others while carrying your own pain, and heaven never forgot that. Now the same generosity you poured out is returning multiplied, overflowing. Sacred, chosen one, This is a season where heaven's recognition becomes earthly reward, not as material vanity, but as visible mercy. People will see the glow on you and feel peace without understanding why. Your voice will carry healing, your presence will shift atmospheres. You are a walking testimony that endurance births radiance. When heaven recognizes you, the world cannot ignore you. But remember, the spotlight of favor is not a stage, it's a stewardship. What God gives you next is not for display, but for delivery. The blessings arriving are not random gifts, they are divine tools to build, restore, and uplift others. If these words touch your heart, then let them flow beyond you, like water that refuses to stay contained. Truth becomes powerful when shared, like this message, not as a digital act, but as a spiritual gesture of agreement. Share it so that light can travel further, reaching those still sitting in shadow. Every share is a ripple in the river of hope. Someone you've never met might be standing at the edge of giving up, and your simple act of sharing could be the hand that pulls them back. That's how heaven multiplies miracles through willing hearts. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay connected to this current of truth, because divine reminders like these are not coincidences, they are lifelines. In a noisy world, you need a voice that recenters your soul, that reminds you who you are when the world tries to make you forget. And if your spirit feels stirred, if this message feels like water to a thirsty soul, then consider sowing into the very well that has refreshed you. A donation, however small, becomes a sacred exchange. Think of it as planting a seed back into the soil that nourished you. Not payment, but participation. Every act of giving is like adding another log to a divine fire, keeping warmth alive for those still walking through winter. You may never know who your offering touches, but heaven records every drop of oil poured in love. These messages travel further through your support. They cross borders, languages, and hearts that algorithms can't measure. When you give, you're not funding a platform, you're fueling purpose. You're saying, keep the fire burning, someone else still needs light. You are not obligated, you are invited. And if you cannot give, your prayer and your presence are already offerings. But if you can, know this, your generosity becomes part of heaven's echo, resounding with every life that finds healing through words like these. And yes, leave your reflection below. Let your voice join the choir of chosen ones. Maybe write what you felt while reading this, or what part of your journey these words touched. Your comment isn't just text, it's testimony. And testimonies are torches for others still walking through the dark. Because when you speak, you remind someone else, I survived too. And that simple echo can be the beginning of someone else's breakthrough. Chosen one, heaven recognizes you. The divine record now lists your name among the faithful. You have carried light through the storm, and now you are trusted to carry it into the world. Every like, every share, every word you write in faith becomes another spark. Together, we build a constellation of light across the world, souls linked by grace, glowing in unity. So let your heart rest. The season of proving is done. You have been seen, celebrated, and crowned. Heaven recognizes your love, and the world is about to see the reflection of that love through your life. You are no longer the one in testing, you are the one carrying testimony. Heaven recognizes you. Earth will respond to you, and grace will continue to flow through you as long as you remain a vessel of love. The air feels lighter now, doesn't it? Chosen one, the warfare that once circled you like a storm has grown quiet. The tension that lived in your chest has begun to ease. This is what peace after battle feels like, not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness. Heaven has declared rest over you, and creation itself is responding. You have stepped into a new season, the season of ease, not because you escaped struggle, but because you have mastered surrender. You no longer fight for control, you flow with divine rhythm. What once exhausted you no longer affects you, because you now recognize which battles belong to you and which belong to God. This ease is not laziness, it's alignment. It's the kind of peace that comes when your spirit, mind, and purpose finally walk in step with heaven's tempo. The striving has ceased. The worrying has faded. You are no longer swimming upstream. You are moving with the current of grace. There was a time when you mistook busyness for purpose, when you thought motion equaled progress. But now you know, peace is the proof of presence. When God is near, things begin to settle. What once required force now unfolds naturally. The mountains that intimidated you no longer feel like obstacles, they feel like landmarks. Reminders of how far you've come. You have learned the sacred art of rest, which is not inactivity but trust. It's the posture of the soul that says, God has gone before me, and I am safe. The same hands that carried you through storms now guide you beside still waters. You don't have to fight to be seen or strain to be understood. The ones who are meant for your path will find you by the light of peace that radiates from within you. As was spoken in the book of Exodus, chapter 33, verse 14, My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. There will be days when you wake up and realize that what once scared you no longer holds power. The same situations that used to provoke fear will now invite laughter. That's the mark of spiritual maturity, when peace becomes your instinct, not your reward. This ease doesn't mean the absence of challenges. It means challenges no longer define your emotional temperature. You can stand in the middle of uncertainty and still breathe deeply. You have built an inner sanctuary that no storm can invade. Chosen one, this ease is heaven's applause for your endurance. It is God saying, You've proven your love, now live in my rest. The same peace that guarded Jesus in the storm now guards you. It is not fragile, it is fierce. It is the kind of peace that holds power, the authority to silence chaos simply by existing. You are not running anymore. You are rooted. You no longer need to chase purpose, because purpose is walking with you. Every step you take now is guided by divine intuition. Every move orchestrated by the Spirit. You will find yourself in the right places at the right time, meeting the right people, receiving the right words, all because peace leads you. This season will feel strange at first, especially after so many battles. You might even find yourself searching for conflict because you've grown used to the noise. But resist the urge to fill silence with striving. The calm is not a pause, it's a preparation. God is resetting your rhythm for the next wave of purpose. You will notice your creativity returning, your joy expanding, your laughter growing lighter. The energy that was once spent surviving is now available for building. You are no longer reacting, you are creating. The wilderness season taught you resilience. This season will teach you rest. Do not mistake stillness for stagnation. What feels slow is actually sacred acceleration. God is moving you from maintenance to manifestation. The waiting room has turned into a launch pad, and peace is the fuel. The battle was necessary, but it was never meant to last forever. Ease is not a reward for surviving. It's a natural result of surrendering. You didn't fight your way here. You flowed your way here through obedience, trust, and love that endured the test. Chosen one, breathe again. You've earned this stillness. You've walked through fire, through loss, through breaking, and you emerged steady. The storm is over, and the sky has cleared. This is not the calm before another storm. This is the calm that comes when heaven says, "It is finished." So rest, not as one escaping battle, but as one reigning in victory. Peace is now your territory, and no darkness can trespass without permission. The warfare has bowed, the fire has cooled, and grace reigns over your story. You are not striving anymore. You are soaring. You have reached the summit. Chosen one. The long road of testing, silence, breaking, and refining has led here to revelation, to fulfillment, to peace. You have walked through the valley, through fire and shadow, and now you stand in light. This is the point where heaven looks at you and says, "You loved, and you won." There were moments when love seemed to cost too much, when faith felt foolish, when obedience looked like loss. But every tear that fell, every quiet yes whispered in pain, every step taken in faith, none of it was wasted. You didn't just survive, you transformed. You didn't just endure, you became. This is the truth few understand. The greatest victory is not over enemies, but over your own despair. You conquered hopelessness with hope, fear with faith, bitterness with love. You are not just a survivor of trials, you are a master of transformation. You have become the evidence that love, once refined, can never die. The Apostle John recorded in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 21, "To the one who is victorious, I will give the right to sit with me on my throne. Just as I was victorious and sat down with my Father on his throne." That is what this moment means. You have shared in his suffering, and now you share in his victory. You have become part of heaven's legacy of overcomers. You are seated, spiritually, in a place of authority that pain could not strip away. The final phase of every divine journey is not reward, it is recognition. Heaven recognizes who you've become. You are no longer the same soul who once trembled in uncertainty. Your scars have become signatures of grace. Your endurance has been written into eternity as testimony. You are living proof that faith works, that love is stronger than fear, that obedience produces beauty no fire can destroy. Everything the enemy tried to break has become the material God used to build your crown. You are, in every sense, the masterpiece of mercy. The tests that once felt like punishment were preparation. The tears that once felt like loss were irrigation for a greater harvest. The silences that once felt like rejection were training you to hear God beyond sound. All of it was divine design. Nothing you endured was meaningless. You are the story heaven tells when it wants to remind angels that love still wins. You are the melody creation hums when it remembers its creator. You are proof that grace can turn any grave into a garden. Do you see how everything has come full circle? The pain that once pressed you now propels you. The rejection that once wounded you now refines your discernment. The loneliness that once broke you now deepens your compassion. Every shadow that touched you left behind a brighter light. You are no longer walking in survival mode. You are walking in sacred stability. The days of emotional storms are over. Now you live in a rhythm of peace. You've discovered that true strength is not found in striving, but in surrender. Look at your journey from the night of despair to the dawn of clarity. From the silence of heaven to the symphony of revelation. The same God who tested your love has now crowned it. You have proven faithful in little. Now heaven trusts you with much. You carry peace where chaos once lived. You speak life where pain once silenced you. You breathe grace where anger once thrived. You are the living embodiment of redemption, walking evidence that God wastes nothing. This, chosen one, is what victory looks like. Not loud, not prideful, but steady, radiant, grounded. You no longer need to prove anything. Love has already proven you. When you look back now, don't see scars, see signatures. Don't see failures, see formation. Don't see loss, see legacy. Everything has worked together for good. Exactly as heaven promised. Your story is no longer one of struggle, it is one of triumph. You have moved from testing to testimony, from pain to purpose, from endurance to elevation. You loved, and heaven calls that victory. You passed the test not by strength, but by surrender. You won not by fighting, but by forgiving. You overcame not by perfection, but by persistence. So rest in that truth. Walk in that peace. You are not waiting for the blessing, you have become the blessing. Wherever you go, heaven's fragrance will follow. You are the evidence that God's love never fails, that obedience always bears fruit, and that those who hold on until the end always rise. Chosen one, if your heart has walked this journey with me from the silence, the testing, the breaking, to the final revelation, then you know this wasn't just a message, it was a mirror, a reminder that your love, your faith, your endurance were never invisible to heaven. You are no longer standing at the edge of hope, you are standing inside its fulfillment. The same God who tested your love has now rewarded it with peace. You made it through. You proved that love wins. And if these words have touched something deep inside you, let that connection continue to grow. Like this message, not for numbers, but as a quiet amen. Share it so another weary soul might find light in their own midnight. Every share is a ripple of healing, a spark of faith traveling from heart to heart. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Not out of habit, but as a decision to stay anchored to words that lift, heal, and realign you with purpose. Let this be your reminder. You are part of a greater family of chosen ones across the world, each carrying light into dark places. And when you're ready, write a comment below. Tell me what moment in this journey spoke to you most. Your words matter. They might be the very words someone else needs to keep believing. This is how the light spreads, not through sermons, but through souls who have been changed. Through people like you who turn revelation into reflection. You've been tested. You've been proven. You've been crowned. And now you shine.